Another match for Iran against Uzbekistan. On today's episode, we will recap and analyze Iran's match against Uzbekistan and preview Iran's upcoming match against Qatar. You know the deal, and you know what time it is. It's time for Team Melli Talk. Team Melli was ready to face the Uzbeks in Tashkent. Hey everyone, welcome back to Team Melli Talk. Before we get to our main agenda, make sure you check out our store. We have green Team Melli jerseys, green Team Melli shirts, and new mugs of your favorite Team Melli footballers. Check them out now. Now let's take a look at Iran's starting lineup against Uzbekistan. Getting the start in goal once again, Ali Reza Bayronvand. Next for the backline, Mohammadi, Nemati, Khalilzadeh, Hardani. Now for the midfielders, Mohebi, Goldus, Ezatollahi, Jahanbash. And of course, the two forwards up top, Taremi and Azmoun. The noticeable change in this lineup was Ali Nemati getting the start. It would also be his debut for the national team of Iran. Another draw between Iran and Uzbekistan. And not only another draw, but another scoreless draw. Let's not forget, the previous meeting between these two teams was also a scoreless draw, but that was the last match of the previous round of qualifying, and there basically wasn't anything to play for, and we saw that from the way both teams are playing, the way both teams are playing it safe. But this time around, I'm pretty sure fans of both teams were expecting some more excitement. Uzbekistan remains top of the group with 7 points, but more importantly, a better goal difference than Iran.
And now for this segment of the show, I am very honored to be joined by Djamshid Foroughi. He is an Iranian football expert. There's a lot more I can say, but of course we're analyzing the match between Iran and Uzbekistan. Djamshid, welcome to Team Melli Talk. It really is an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you, Arash. You're too kind. It's wonderful to be on your show finally, and looking forward to speaking with you.
Okay, now look, when we look back at this match, it's a scoreless draw. There's a decent amount to talk about. I mean, when I look back at this match, Iran, of course, was looking better in the first half. And, this was a tale of two halves. I kind of want to call it that. But, the red card from Saleh Hardani definitely changed everything in this match. And, I'm going to add to that a little bit later. But recently, some of our followers have really been wanting to get more details about the tactics of Amir Ghalenoui. So after watching this match today, what can you share about the tactics of Amir Ghalenoui?
Well, Arash, from my perspective, and it's always easy to look back once the match has ended and find fault and criticize and be a pundit, but to be fair to Ghalenoui, I've never met him. He's from a generation that was one generation removed from the last generation of Iranian footballers who I knew intimately well. And I do feel that we have to keep things within context. Ghalenoui, for me, is someone who I feel has that typical inferiority complex that many players, ex-players, managers in Iran have because of their lack of exposure to top-class football, whether it be in coaching or management or as a player. And sometimes I feel that he has a stubborn tendency to stick to a certain formation, to certain players, to be overly loyal to certain players. And that can cloud one's judgment about the person. And given the fact that, as I mentioned, I don't know him personally, I don't want to be judgmental. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I think today we saw a bit of the good Ghalenoui and a bit of the bad Ghalenoui. Starting with the negative. The lineup, almost predictable. I was surprised that Noor Afghan was not selected from the start. And it was nice to see a change up there. And within 30 to 35 minutes, I was feeling that we need to see some changes. Obviously, we'd have to wait until halftime. It wouldn't make sense necessarily to make any changes. And as you mentioned, Arash, the first half was not a bad half for Iran. I personally actually don't see this match as having been a tale of two halves in that sense where one team dominated one half, another team dominated the other half. I see it more of kind of a drab, scrappy match, which came to life a little bit in the second half. So I think both teams had a better second half than they did at first half, with the difference being that until Hardani's red card in the 62nd minute, I think Uzbekistan was bossing the match in the second half, and I was worried. Strangely enough, post red card, things started changing, and I think the substitutions made a big difference, but I'm not really sure that Alanoi's intention was to make the substitutions for the purpose and effect that we ended up seeing. I think I'm going to have to give the players a lot of credit today for really sticking with their plan, being organized, being tough, resilient, and mentally, as well as physically prepared to play with 10 men. And I think that's a credit to the players, but also, of course, we're going to have to give Galanoi and his staff some credit as well. So that's why I say a bit of the bad, a bit of the good. That was my impression.
Okay, next, you did mention something I wanted to get to. So, in your opinion, did Galanoi make the right substitutions after Iran was reduced to 10 men?
Great question, Arash. I have to start by saying that I was mortified when I realized that Galanoi was making a substitution while there was going to be a VAR review. And I looked back at it as well, and I thought maybe I mistimed my perspective, but no. He had Mehdi Qaidi ready to go, and as we know, substituted Mohibi out and brought Qaidi in, while the discussion to have a review, a VAR review, was taking place. And I don't think he really realized that there was a red card coming up. And perhaps if he had, he may have delayed that substitution. As it turns out, he makes the substitution. The VAR process takes 2.5 minutes, and a red card is produced technically post-substitution. And now I'm just sitting there going, okay, we're down to 10 men, and we have an extra attacker coming in, because Moebi was pretty much playing as a cover for Milad Mohammadi. He was really doing a good job in terms of effort, but he wasn't really providing any offensive spark at all. So now you've got Qaidi. We know what he's capable of. We know what kind of a tricky winger he is. He's got great skills. He's going to liven up the match. But at the same time, we're down to 10 men. Does this make sense? So I was really worried. And from the 62nd minute to the 71st, actually, it was earlier than 62nd. I think it was the 55th or 56th minute of the match when I think the red card was actually technically given on the 57th minute of the match. About 14, 15 minutes later, he brings in Nur Afkan for Qudus. I thought that was a good substitution in the sense that Qudus already had a yellow card. He was having trouble playing right back. I think he was tired as well. So there's a possibility of us going down to 9 men. What I'm surprised, though, and I think in this particular case, Nur Afkan and Galanoi proved me wrong. Well, you've got Arya Yousefi. Why not bring him in? Why do you even bring someone like Yousefi? I'm sure it's great to have him exposed to the Team Melli setup. He's played 2 or 3 matches already for Iran, including in competitive matches. If you're going to take Nur Afkan and put him on left back and bring Milad Mohammadi to right back. So that was kind of confusing to me, and it didn't make sense, but I think it worked out. Coincidentally, providentially, or intentionally, I can't tell. And I think none of us can really figure that one out. If we give Galanoi credit for that, then, if he did that intentionally and had that in mind and felt that this was going to be the result, then I think we have to give him credit. But then when you see Rolizadeh warming up, I get happy, because John Bash, for me, it's a mystery. I don't understand why he's starting. He has no real impact as an offensive player anymore, it seems. And defensively, he's naive. He works hard, but he misreads plays. He gets himself in trouble. He tackles late. He runs after a ball that's clearly going to be passed 1-touch, 2-touch to another player on the other side of the pitch. And it's like a lot of running and effort for nothing. And so Rolizadeh comes in, and it's almost an entirely different match. I mean, he was, to me, for the 10 or 12 minutes that he was on the pitch, he was, if he had played from the start at that level, he might have been man of the match. But then we see Moranlu coming in with him, and I'm dreading this again. And I think you know how I feel about that. You've got a battering ram approach, but a battering ram has to be able to also hold up the ball. He didn't have that much time to really show himself, but I think given the circumstances, he did okay. And so again, we look back and say the substitutions don't necessarily make sense. The starting lineup doesn't necessarily make sense, but it all kind of worked out in the end. And if the referee had decided to give the penalty, although he did decide to give the penalty and then reversed himself, I think we would have come out with a somewhat lucky lucky win. But I think given that we had 10 men, got a point, and probably if anyone deserved to win, it was us. I think it's a good day for Team Melli and a good day for Galenoy as well.
Going back to something earlier that we talked about, I wasn't really necessarily saying like, the tale of two halves. I'm talking about the way I'm bound to focus more on the way Iran played. And that is, in the first half, I was not impressed, with a lot of the long balls and the lack of creativity. And, of course, that's something, we don't like. But there were times, that Iran was pressing Uzbekistan, and it was successful at times because, Iran did have more possession and they did complete more passes in their own half and in Uzbekistan's half, which of course I'm talking about in the first half of this match. So that was good though. And, to touch on what you said as well, too, where you're saying, getting a point, being down 10 men, is that I really like how Iran picked up their sense of urgency and effort when they went down the 10 men. I mean, I started getting memories of that victory over South Korea in Tehran in October 2012 when they were down to 10 men and they still found a way to win. I mean, it was unbelievable. I want to talk about some of those opportunities. As Saeed Ezzatullahi almost scored with a beautiful header.
Gorgeous header.
So close. He did everything he could. Then he also floated a nice ball over the top, in which Azmoun came close. He did get a touch on it. It was an opportunity while they were still down with 10 men. I really like what I saw. And look, you've heard me say before that I'm not a big fan of Omi Nourafkan, but he had some good give and go teamwork with Mehdi Gaidi on the flank, and that was definitely very good. And also with
I agree with you.
Yeah, and also with Mehdi Tarmi, he did a good job. Whether he was dropping back as a midfielder, to help, jumpstart attacks, or playing out wide and trying to stretch the field. So given the circumstances, this was a good point for Iran. I mean, obviously I wanted the win, but getting a tie, having been down 10 men, and and even the way they were playing towards the end of the match, they didn't look like a team that was playing with 10 men. I mean, if you ask me, Uzbekistan the Uzbeks took their foot off the gas and said, you know what? We're at home. Let's just get this point because we might as well just take it. And that was a really bad mentality on their part. But more of this is on the part of Team Melli, just playing better, playing with more effort. And, that's what we have. We have to see more of that kind of play.
I agree with you, Arash, on all of the points that you just made. Specifically, the character that the Team Melli showed is something that sometimes goes missing. I think today we realize why you never sub Mehdi Taremi if you can avoid subbing him, because his experience, his knowledge, his intelligence, his ability to link up play, all of those things were evident. No, he didn't have a great match, but almost, the 22 players on the pitch, or 21 as it turns out, none of them really excelled, although I'm with you. Saeed Ezzatullahi, for me, was man of the match. But we go back to the issue. The team starts in a formation that feels to me very unbalanced. We've got a left flank that's doing well. We've got a right flank that's weak. And at halftime, might be a good time to start making the adjustments. I personally, probably looking back, of course, I have the benefit of being able to look back and not be under pressure like Galenoy is. I would have subbed Jahanbakhsh at halftime and brought in Gholizadeh, without even knowing what I now know developed in the second half. I'm not a big Saleh Hardoni fan. I'm not saying he's not up to par, but I again have seen him too many times make mistakes. He's no Moharrami. Rezaian, I know, seems to have been eased out now, perhaps because of his age. I'm not sure, but sometimes I think it would be nice to have him back. Although I am in this instance, I do like Ghalenoi's approach. I do like the fact that he's trying to blood new talent in. Although again, he calls up so many very high potential, talented, skillful players like Jawad Hossein or Mohammad Ghourbani, but doesn't seem to really trust them enough to introduce them. Then again, today he starts Ali Nemati, which surprised me. But I think Nemati did well, given the fact that it's his debut under tough circumstances away to Uzbekistan, World Cup qualifying. So, Ghalenoui is a bit of a mystery to me, but I know the first time around in 2006/2007, he didn't impress any of us. I think, of course, he's more experienced now. He is more confident now, and he probably feels like he's on stronger footing now. And we are getting decent results, but I just have a feeling that with Ghalenoui, despite the fact that this team has, I think, a stronger offensive potential than, it seems pretty obvious that our midfield is the weak link in between four lines. If we consider Beiroman as a pretty solid goalkeeper, defensively, we're pretty solid. We've got two excellent forwards, a couple of very, very good wingers, but we're lacking something in the middle. If Ezat Tolei can play consistently like he played today, Odus, of course, has a role to play. We just miss somebody who can be a really top quality playmaker, someone like an Ali Karimi, or going back to my time before 1979, someone like a Ali Parvin, Sirus Qayyagran in the 80s, players who could open up defenses, make that defense splitting pass, set up forwards, the great forwards that we have, to be able to score more. I don't really feel that that's really bubbling up to the surface yet. And maybe we just have to be a little bit more patient. But certainly by 2026, we need to have a better performance on a consistent basis from this Team Melli. And I think the solution there is to get some of these young players in sooner rather than later, so that by, 22 months from now, they're used to this big stage and they can perform with those experienced players blended in.
Djamshid, you're preaching to the choir here. Obviously, that's what we want to see, but I beat a dead horse so many times lately. So, I guess I'll probably take a break from that. But Djamshid, I'd just like to thank you for taking the time to join me on Team Melli Talk. It really was really an honor to have you here and hear about all your expertise of Iranian football and all the knowledge you had to share as well. As I'm about to let you go though, if you were to make one small prediction about the match against Qatar, who do you see starting on defense in the back four?
It's really become difficult to predict. I'm not sure if I think Shoja is a given, both based on his performances, but also on the fact that he's the most experienced defender we have, given that Kanani Zadigan is out. I would probably give Nemati another shot as well. They seem to work well together. We didn't really have any defensive lapses. And going back to your point, Arash, that you made a little while ago, I agree with you. This is not the greatest Uzbekistan team of all time in terms of star players. They have Shomurodov. We all know that he's an excellent top quality player, and they have some good supporting cast. But the Server Jeparov teams, the Maxim Shastir teams, I think as talent-wise, were better than this team. But I think this team is better managed than any of previous Uzbekistan team that I can recall. And the fact that they felt the point would be good enough, and as you mentioned, took their foot off the gas towards the end, I think they were actually a little scared. And I think what scared them was the personality and character that Team Melli was showing, the physicality, we're not going to lose this, and in fact, we'll go for a win mentality, which we don't see that often or often enough. And I think when you have players like Qolizadeh, I'm a big fan of his, opponents fear that kind of player. We need, I think, a little bit more risk-taking. 1-0s are great. We'll take the 3 points any day. 0-0 Uzbekistan with 10 players is fine. So going to the United Arab Emirates in 3 or 4 days, I think I would like to see the same team effectively minus John Bash, nothing personal. Probably start Qaidi as well. Ezatolohi Qudus in the middle. Osmoon and Taremi, but I could also see a situation where you have a Taremi and maybe an Hossein Nejad. So, I don't necessarily think that we should change too much, but a little bit of tinkering to put in more explosive, more talented, more skillful players who can help get us a couple of goals against Qatar. We need to pay them back. I don't have fond memories of that match in February, so it would be nice to get a couple of goals against them and take the 3 points in the UAE, especially since they haven't cooperated and done the right thing by agreeing to switch the home and away fixtures to be fair. But again, we don't expect that from the Qataris anyway.
Djamshid, once again, it was great to have you here. All the best to you. And of course, I'm looking forward to have you back on the show again as soon as possible.
Thank you, Arash. Thank you for the invitation. Hope to see you soon. And go Team Melli.
Iran and Qatar know each other very well. And even though Iran has gotten the better of Qatar throughout history, it's important to point out that Qatar has been a very tough opponent for Iran on many occasions. The last meeting between these teams took place in the recent edition of the Asian Cup. Qatar came out on top with a 3-2 win over Iran in the semi-finals. It was a crushing blow as Qatar would go on to win a second consecutive Asian Cup title. Qatar is coming off a 3-1 victory over Kyrgyzstan. The goals were scored by Al-Muez Ali, Ibrahim Al-Hassan, and the other was an own goal. As for the players to watch, here they are. Al-Muez Ali, Akram Afif, and Ed Milson Jr. Al-Muez Ali has been playing for Al Duhail since 2016, and he is a goal-scoring machine. He isn't always guaranteed to have a great game, but if you give him enough space or let your guard down, he definitely will punish you. Akram Afif of Al Sadd is the playmaker for Qatar. You slow him down and get in his way, and Qatar will not be able to do much. The third player to watch, winger Edmilson Jr. of Al Duhail. Yes, a naturalized footballer from Brazil. He is 30 years old, but previously had stints in Belgium with Sint-Truiden and Standard Liège. The head coach of Qatar is former Spanish footballer Tintin Marquez. Of course, Marquez made a name for himself by leading Qatar to a first-place finish at the recent Asian Cup. But World Cup qualifying hasn't been really going according to plan for Qatar, so we can expect them to take some risks against Iran. Let's not forget, Iran will face Qatar on October 15th in Dubai. Now to finish off this episode, I need to talk keys to victory. Number 1, stay disciplined in the back. Number 2, take the game to Qatar. Seriously, got to take the game to Qatar. Whether it's long balls, attacking from the flanks, whipping crosses into the penalty area, or trying to go over the top, do what you got to do. Iran has also got to be creative with some through balls and some smart dummy plays. I really feel like recently we have not seen a lot of creativity from Team Melli, and they just got to get this going. Qatar has never been known to have a very good defense, and we're obviously seeing it because Qatar has allowed 6 goals in 3 matches. The fact of the matter is that Qatar is going to be in the mood to take some risks, and this will give Iran opportunities to expose holes in the midfield. But of course, Iran must also clean up mistakes on defense. In the match against Uzbekistan, there was a close call that almost resulted in a goal from Masharipov in the 63rd minute. It was on this play where Iran's defense was all over the place. They weren't clearing their lines, and it was Shoja Khaliazadeh and Saman Goldus that were falling asleep. These kinds of mistakes cannot happen again because we clearly remember Al-Muez Ali punishing Iran in the semi-finals of the Asian Cup. The match between Iran and Qatar will be tough, but Iran is the better team and will come out on top as long as the best players are on the pitch.